Welcome, listeners, to Thru the Sightglass, a podcast that dives deep into the fascinating world of craft beer and celebrates the incredible individuals who shape its vibrant landscape. Join us on a journey where we explore the nuances of this amazing industry and the remarkable people who contribute to its richness and diversity. And today, we have the pleasure of sitting down with Norway Brewing Company in Norway, Maine. Thank you for making time for us, friend.
Absolutely.
Thank
it's my
you
pleasure.
so much. Yeah. So give us a little intro. What's your role here? Give us your name.
So my name's Charlie Melhus. I am the head brewer and co-founder, general manager of Norway Brewing Company. I own this company with my partner, Erica Melhus, my mother, Brenda, and my father, Ola Melhus. We've been in operation since April 21st, 2016.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's
Thank you.
awesome.
Yeah.
So coming up on 9 years.
Coming up on 9 years.
Wow.
That's crazy.
And actually, you can see up on the shelf, every year we do a birthday cake stout. It's the one on the
perfect.
top there.
Yeah.
Cool. Are those all since the beginning? Like those are different variations of the birthday cake
No,
stout?
these are all our different brands.
Oh,
So,
okay, gotcha.
Lust for Gold, West Coast IPA, Inglorious Bastard, Farmhouse Pale Ale,
Nice.
Bam's Brown Ale, which Corey, one of our brewers, helped to develop, and Mr. Grumpy Pants, which is our core flagship
Yeah.
kind of oatmeal
Fitting
stout
name.
coffee.
I love it.
Yeah, right. I
Yeah,
know.
Mr. Grumpy Pants. That's perfect.
It's a lived experience for
Yeah.
sure.
We'll have to
Nice.
get the story here in a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, Charlie, where did you grow up?
So to explain where I grew up, I kind of have to go back to the beginning. So I was born in the town of Tromsø in the country of Norway. My father's Norwegian.
Oh,
and
damn.
my mother's from Spartanburg, South Carolina. They met in Europe and dated long distance for a while, got married, and then moved to Norway and had me. We moved to the States when I was 1.5 to Augusta, Georgia.
Okay.
Then when I was 6, we moved to Durham, North Carolina. And when I was 12 in 1994, we moved here to Norway, Maine.
Wow. Okay.
How's
That's
it-
quite a
Yeah.
change.
Norway to Norway. Love
Yeah.
That. Was that intentional?
No.
No.
I think it was serendipitous that we found a spot here in Norway, as my mom was alluding to.
Yeah.
We almost moved to Yakima, Washington, but my dad didn't get that job. Like, they pulled the job offer
Oh, okay.
right
gotcha.
before we were supposed to move. So we searched for another year and found a job at Stevens Memorial Hospital right here in Norway, Maine. And we found a house and moved up here, like I said, in 1994. And I've moved away and moved back a couple times and really wanted to establish my place, here with my 2 kids and my partner. Because, I like being in the woods. I like being in the countryside. It's kind of part of the identity of Norway Brewing is that small town neighborhood bar. And honestly, I think I feel like I couldn't think of a better place to bring the kind of hospitality that we provide. I've been in the hospitality industry since I was 15. And just as much as I am a brewer, I'm a restaurant manager and chef, and I've worked just about every position.
Yeah.
At
At a restaurant or an industry.
Well,
yeah,
in
bars.
this, I've been the dishwasher,
Yeah.
I've been the head chef, I've been the bar manager, I've been the brewer, I've been I always like to say head janitor.
Yes. I think that's what most owners or head brewers call themselves, is the head janitor for sure.
You realize a lot of it's not just making good beer, but I think running a
Keeping
good
things
business
clean.
that has anything to do with food or beverage is just clean.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're trying to keep that level of cleanliness, and like I said, we just redid our bar because the subfloor was squishy and the tile was cracking, and it was just killing me because it was hard to clean. So we redid it completely with all pressure treated, and I feel pretty accomplished. I'm not a builder.
Nice. Well, it's just adding to your skill set.
You can add that to your resume.
Right. Well, yeah. I always say that I'm practicing. to rebuild my house someday.
Yes.
Oh, that's perfect.
That's
So you
Yeah.
might as well just do it here at a brewery.
Yeah, right.
I love that. What was it like growing up in Maine? Because that's probably where you were the longest.
Yeah, it's a tight knit community. You know, there are different, I guess, crowds and groups of people. There are a lot of people that have been there. There are a lot of people that have been here their whole life. So coming in as an outsider, it was a little daunting. You know, you're a new kid at school.
It's like some skepticism about it.
Well, no, just everybody already has their friends, and you got to kind of try to break in. But it didn't take long. You know, I was in 6th grade when we moved up here, so it didn't take long to kind of establish a group of friends. And honestly, like I fell in with like the weirdos and the geeks pretty quickly.
Yeah.
The alienated group, the outcasts.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, I wouldn't say I'm an outcast, but I definitely identify with fringe.
It's a broad spectrum. It's a
Yeah.
broad
fringe
spectrum.
culture.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Yeah. So, were there any activities that y'all did, or like, what did y'all do?
Well, we did start cross country skiing pretty early.
Okay,
when
gotcha.
we moved up here. My dad being Norwegian, and he wanted to teach us this skill, which we were, you know, enthused about in various degrees. But we did end up, you know, being on cross country ski team. There's a lot of swimming and canoeing and hiking and camping in the summer.
Oh, nice.
But Norway still has, I should say, since then, Norway has developed some really awesome lit ski trails at Roberts Farm Preserve, and there are plenty of mountains around Pleasant Mountain, Mount Abram, Sunday River, Sugarloaf for downhill skiing.
Nice.
I'm of the opinion that, I mean, you can live here and hate the snow and cold, and you're going to be miserable, or you can just embrace it.
Right.
And
Embrace and enjoy.
I'm not a huge fan of like slush and ice, but I do love the snow. And I love to get outside in it. I love to like snowshoe up my local little bald top mountain, streak
Oh,
of
nice.
mountains, and ski down.
Yeah.
Definitely.
That's what we're excited to kind of, because we haven't been around too much snow. But
No,
like,
and I
that's
just
one
got
thing.
a part-time job at REI, so people are like, here are the places to go.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
awesome.
we want to do some snowshoeing this year while we're here, because we're going to be here for a couple weeks.
Great.
Couple
There's
months,
so many spots to do snowshoe hikes and glade skiing.
Oh, very cool.
But yeah, again, Roberts Farm Preserve, Shepherd's Farm Preserve. A lot of our business in the winter Berliner Weiss. A lot of our business in the winter comes from people doing
coming skiing.
winter
Yeah,
activities in the
winter
summer, hiking
Yeah.
and so on and so forth. So
I guess it's an easy segue. Does this town really blow up in the wintertime due to seasonality for some of this stuff, or yes or no?
I wouldn't say it blows up, but it definitely sustains us.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
We're basically a 3-season town.
Oh, okay.
I want to say there's summer, there's fall, and there's winter. There's really, people call it mud season, but
Oh, okay.
it's almost like winter leads right into summer.
The winter thawing in the rain, it just is wet,
Right.
dirty, and muddy. Okay,
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
relate to that.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, what did you do after high school? What did you move away for?
So I went to the University of Maine at Orono for a year and a half. I ended up dropping out and living in Orono for another half a year. Then I moved back here, lived and worked in Norway for a year, and then I moved to Portland, which is Maine's biggest city,
Yeah.
or town. Really, it's a large town. If you've ever been to a city, it definitely has that kind of metropolitan feel, but the buildings are a lot smaller.
Yes,
Yeah.
we love it. It's great.
It's also really spread out too.
Yeah.
I think that's what's interesting for it being like a city, quote unquote, because growing up in the West Coast, there's Seattle where it's very centralized, and then Portland is somewhat centralized, but then it's spread out to a bunch of different boroughs. And Portland, Maine feels even more spread out than Portland, Oregon, where like it's very sectioned, and getting from one place will take you 15 to 20 minutes. But then when you're there, there's no reason to kind of leave that area, is what I feel like.
We love it.
Yeah.
That's why we're staying for so long. It's not only because there's a ton of places to do beer, podcasts, and different things, and the atmosphere and the weather and everything, but we just really enjoy Portland, Maine. I think if we didn't love the West Coast so much, we'd probably be out this way somewhere.
Right, yeah.
So,
I've been to Portland, Oregon, and it is insanely cool.
Yeah.
But Portland, Maine is actually the original Portland.
We do know this. We do know this.
A fact that I was very ready to remind people on the West Coast. I don't know if they were as receptive as I was ready to enlighten them, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's, Maine as a whole has a pretty small town feel. We do get a lot of tourists, which really helps both our numbers and, other hospitality businesses. In the summer, the ski tourism is definitely really important. We even get people, leaf peepers looking at the changing colors in the autumn. And again, mud season where nobody comes around.
Yeah.
Only the diehards.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
But
sure.
again, you have to embrace living with that seasonality to truly enjoy everything about Maine. Again, I don't know many people that really enjoy chipping ice off, some snowbank that they wish they had taken care of before it was 15 degrees overnight.
Right.
Yeah.
But it is part of the experience.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah, I love that. We'll get to experience some of it this winter.
We're excited.
So we'll let you know afterwards. But yeah. So some of the jobs you said you started kind of in the industry when you were 15. So in that industry, were you around alcohol, and what kind of drinking scene were you a part of?
So when I started, I actually was scooping ice cream at a pizza shop, or a Main Street variety shop as they call it.
Oh, rad.
That store is now gone. It burnt down. But then I worked at a place called the Caswell House. And there wasn't much alcohol. It was a variety store, so they had to-go beer.
Yeah.
But working at the Caswell House, there was this guy, Mike Malloy, and I think he was more whiskey than man.
The legend.
Yeah, the legend of Mike Malloy. But I think I think I might have snuck a Mike's Hard Lemonade or something out of the out of one of the coolers when I was like 19 or 20.
So not much craft beer.
Not at first, but when I moved to Orono, and started going out there, let's just say for the benefit of the owners of this pub that I was definitely 21.
Yes.
I started going to the Bear Brew, which was our local brew pub in Orono, and started tasting the different, styles.
Oh, nice.
I remember they made a cherry wheat. They had obviously a pale ale and an IPA, stouts, porters, browns, et cetera, and that's really where it started. I remember making a Mr. Beer homebrew kit in my closet while I still lived on campus, and it was it was awful. It was the most terrible thing I think I've ever drank.
I love it. It's like instead of growing pot in your closet, you had a Mr. Beer kit fermenting away. That's so awesome.
It was like this little plastic thing
jug
in the shape of a wooden barrel, and it was cheesy as hell, but the next year, I got one of the True Brew kits, and it is, extract brewing. But I started brewing in my barn when I lived off campus, and was going to the Bear Brew and got a taste for homebrew. When I eventually moved to Portland, I started helping this guy Ken Collings at Freeport Brewing Company out. Very much what we would call a nano brewery. It was like a 2-barrel, 3-barrel setup. With improvised tanks, and a homemade mash tun with like wood just kind of strapped to the sides.
Oh, nice. For like the rakes?
Yeah. It has wood slats just like strapped around the outside of this metal vessel.
That's so awesome.
And Ken goes, well, don't forget the chair when you get in to dig out the mash, because if you forget the chair, you can't get out. And don't forget your cell phone, because if you forget your cell phone, you forget the chair, you can't call anybody.
Oh my gosh. I love it. That's so great.
So, yeah, very manual. And I learned how to all grain brew from
Okay.
Ken. He was a great inspiration
Oh my
for.
gosh.
We were making primarily English ales
Okay, gotcha.
with English yeast. I can't remember which strain it was. Maybe Nottingham. Sorry, Ken.
It's okay.
No, it's okay. No, it's perfect.
But yeah, we brewed a brown ale. We did a bitter blonde, and a couple others. He's changed his lineup. I think his big hit back in the day was Chocolate City Porter.
Okay.
Oh,
That
nice.
does sound nice.
Yeah, which was when I went to the first Brewers Festival at the Maine Expo. He had it on tap there.
Gotcha.
Since then, I've definitely expanded my repertoire. When Erica and I both graduated from school, I ended up graduating from our community college with culinary arts degree, and she graduated from Maine College of Arts with a degree in fine art and woodworking.
Oh, nice.
And
We've interviewed so many artists. It's so
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, you're either like a scientist or you're an artist or you're a banker that wants to get out of a
Or
boring
you're
job.
obsessed with just home brewing and figuring out what you did wrong.
Right.
We like hearing people's past jobs because it seems like there's a couple of buckets that people like fall into. So it's
Yeah,
very
and at
cool.
that time when I was working with Ken at Freeport Brewing as his apprentice, we were both line cooks. I
Okay.
met him at the Harrisseek Inn in
Okay.
Freeport, and he was like, "Oh, he's a breakfast cook, so he needed somebody to mash in for him
Right.
and get the brew laudered off into the kettle, so that when he got done with breakfast, he could come in and do the boil and the yeast and
Yeah.
make sure the fermenter was sanitized and all that. And I would go work the line at the tavern in the evening, so it was pretty handy
Yeah.
setup
That's
for
so
him.
awesome.
But then, yeah, after that, Erica and I moved to Norway. I continued to work in the kitchen until our first child was born, and then I got a job at a brewery called Larvig.
Okay.
It was a fairly large regional brewery that was at the time struggling. This guy, Mike Murphy, had just come aboard as the head brewer, and he's really turned the company around. They're exporting all over Europe. They're doing a
nice.
great job.
Oh, awesome.
But Mike was really the one who gave me my brewing chops. As a professional brewer, taught me how to CIP a tank and how to, work a steam generator and how to do all the things that you have to do in a professional packaging. Packaging was
Right.
huge.
Yeah.
We packaged a lot of cans at Larvig.
Okay.
And
So was
honest-
it your first time learning to do cans?
Yeah, it was daunting.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, that filler was like a 32 head rotary filler.
Oh,
We did
yes.
bottles as well, and that was like 24 heads. It was like 32 head rotary counter pressure can filler. And if you didn't have the infeed set up just right, it would just ball the cans up into this gigantic wad of metal.
Yeah, just a bunch of wasted product.
And I mean, you could really throw the whole balance of the machine off. All the work getting it dialed in.
Right.
Just it could be a little bit nightmarish, but luckily here at Norway Brewing we have a lot simpler setup. It still gives us some trouble
It
once in a
wouldn't
while.
be a true brewery if you didn't have a little bit of trouble in there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know.
I also feel like too when people go through your history and experience in brewing, you deal with those machines, and then it's like, how do I want to do this? Do I want it to feel this stressful, this serious, or how do I take technology but kind of simplify it so that when I have it in my space, it's not as stressful as like when you were learning to do I don't know if it was a Crohn's, but I've worked a lot of like production facilities where we've used revolving head fillers, and that machinery is very scary to learn because you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
This is like if I mess up, like it's a expensive machine. It's got a lot running through it. It's not just like, oh, we're filling 2 cans at a time. It's like, no, you're running like 278, cans a minute, 12-ounce cans a minute, or like 84 bottles a minute. It's like,
Yeah. Quick.
Pretty wild.
Yeah. And I believe we did have a Crohn's Seamer. It was like a 3
Oh, yeah.
Seamer. But the filler was a Markel, so it's a very specific German brand.
Oh, okay.
And the tech that would come up and work on it was apparently kind of weird. Anyway, side note.
No,
Side note.
Those technicians. I've met some wild goose techs that are. One of them, I can't remember his name, but he had mass hole tattooed across his stomach when he came out to Oregon to Freem to help install our wild
Sounds
goose
about
canning
right.
line.
I'm nodding right now.
Yes.
So,
For sure.
I just had a quick question, being like, so you were inspired by beer and types of, I think like different flavors, but then you started working with somebody at a restaurant who was running and owning this nano brewery and got you even more invested into this is something I might want to do. What did that jump feel like for you to go from working at this smaller brewery to then working at this much larger facility with, again, it's like you have it's just bigger equipment. It's no longer kind of like Frankenstein homebrew equipment. It's like, oh, this is like everything's stainless steel. It's automated. Was that daunting to you at all?
It was a little bit, I guess, intimidating at first.
Mm-hmm.
It was a 250. It was a 250 hectoliter system, so
Wow.
roughly 30 times larger than our 710 barrel system here.
Mm-hmm.
And if you mess up, and I did a couple times, you can lose a lot of beer. Once was not my fault. Once was we did have to dump some beer because the dosing pump on the diatomaceous earth filter was leaking hydraulic fluid.
Oh, lovely. Yeah.
Into the beer. So, needless to say, again, I figured out the problem. And I don't know. I wish it had never happened, but I'm not going to take full responsibility for that one. One time we made a red ale and we did a substitution. And instead of, I think, Cara Gold, which is, I want to say 120 EBC color units. It was
like the Lepabond.
Cara Munich 2, which was 150, and it really did change the nature of the beer. It came out almost like a brown ale, and then we filtered it, and it wasn't hoppy enough. And that was too bad. That was again another 25,000 liters of beer.
It's a learning process. The hydraulic fluid, I'll tell you off the radio, but I have experience with that as well, where then I was like, do we know how much this got packaged probably? And they're like, maybe 4,000 or 5,000 cases. And I'm like, oh, God.
Cold sweat.
Yeah, for sure. I want to jump back a little bit further. I want to hear, do you remember the first beer that you were like, I want to do this? Or you're like, I want to pursue this more. Did you have a beer like that?
I think in general it was the hoppy kind of sulfate heavy English beers like Geary's had this pale ale, and Geary's is Maine's oldest brewery. They had this pale ale that was just iconic, and it had that kind of very Burton-on-Trent water profile.
Very minerally.
Right, minerally, but also, kind of malty, hoppy. And I think that was one of the first ones where I was like, I like hops. I want to do this. Yeah. And it's interesting because I think everybody's approach to beer, or I guess what I want to say is everybody's progression through what they like in beer is different. Mine kind of started with hops, and then I moved through a period where I was really into kind of maltier beers, and then back to hops and IPA, and then I got really interested in Belgian brewing and yeast, and that led into sour beer. And today, I think I'm still solidly on that mixed fermentation kind of kick.
Yeah.
This tasted lovely.
Yeah.
You could definitely taste all the differences, the
right.
nuances.
We do a number of mixed fermentation beers, and the one that we were sipping on Street Weiss is indicative of our Berliner Weisses. They're definitely not kettle sours. We give them 3 to 6 months to ferment with Brettanomyces.
Oh, awesome.
And live active lactobacillus. I think it gives light sour more depth. And I definitely embrace the funk.
Oh, yeah.
We love funk.
Yeah.
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 So
So
I also like too because I feel like kettle souring sometimes can be more sharp and acidic, and this is almost pillowy is not the right word, but it seems a little bit more like calmer. But it is. It just is a nicer way to put it.
in general, our mixed ferm beers are less sour than some other breweries. I'm okay with that because I'm not going for acid bomb.
Yeah.
We try to make balanced beer that's approachable. And if somebody picks up a Brett Pale Ale and is like, that's pretty good with no knowledge of beer and not having tasted any Belgian styles before,
Yeah.
I consider that a success. I've done my job because sometimes you get the chance to tell somebody a story and really sell them on something. And sometimes they just find your product out in the market and they're like, this looks cool. And they try it and they like it. And you really don't have anything but, well, the branding on the package, but also the flavor, the balance, to really draw them in. And again, this beer has ginger and lemongrass. It's very much suited. I'm talking about the Street Weiss now. It's very much suited to the business that we kind of partnered up to create the concept, which is heavy on Asian fusion.
Oh,
cuisine.
nice.
Jeremy Donovan, he's the chef over there. He's worked at several different places. But we tend to try to do adjuncts and flavorings that we can get produced locally, such as, we do have a coffee roaster. That actually is another brewery, Side by Each Brewing.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Sadly, they're in their last month. I
Oh,
just found that
condolences.
out. Yeah. It's a bummer. Good friends. But they did roast some coffee for us for our Imperial Stout aged in bourbon barrels. Coincidentally, we're also smoking some ribeye today with the staves from one of those barrels.
Oh, I
that's
love
cool.
it. Instead of throwing staves into the fermentation tank, you throw them on the barbecue.
That's right. Yeah,
That's
yeah. We
awesome.
got done with. I was actually kind of mad at that barrel because it was a little leaky. We had a lot of trouble getting the beer out because it wouldn't hold pressure. So
Gotcha.
we ended up gravity feeding the beer as much as we could into the tank, and then a brink. But we gravity fed it into a brink and then pushed it into the tank.
Was it a rum barrel? Those
It was a whiskey barrel.
Oh, okay, gotcha. I was like, usually rum barrels come in horrible conditions for how great the rum can be.
Right. Yeah. No. I thought it was good. It was this awesome looking Widow Jane barrel, and it just didn't. It dried out. It didn't hold pressure.
Yeah.
Part of that might have been the conditions it was stored in, maybe too dry in the warehouse. But honestly, I just was really happy to cut it up and feed it to the
You're
fire.
like, here.
Nice. Yeah. I will say one thing I noticed
That's
about this
funny.
beer because we talk about tasting all the time, and I have worked in a lot of places where the tasting is like, you don't taste the ethyl, glycol, phenol, and it's like, well, what is that? And it's like, well, if you don't know, then you need to do research. So I like to dumb it down. The lemongrass and the peppercorn and kind of a lot of like the phenols and esters that come from the yeast, I could recognize those three. It reminds me a little bit of Ricola, but here's the difference. It's like, it's not like a cough drop like that medicinal. It's like if you were to like, how do I make that Ricola flavor? It would be lemongrass. It would be this peppercorn. It'd be this clove. It'd be like this anise
Very
that you could taste. And I was
love
like,
it.
this is really delicate. This is really nice.
It is a very I would say delicate. For
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Love
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah.
So well done.
Yeah.
Well done.
But
All
yeah,
right.
we try to use a lot of flavors
Yeah.
like from the local area. We've done juniper beers. We've done, and that was like foraged juniper.
Oh, nice.
Very cool.
We've done lots of different fruits, peach, blah, blah, blah. We try to keep it Maine grown, though.
Love it.
Nice.
A lot of our shtick is as Maine grown as possible. And one of our beers that I'll let you try in a bit. Pickle Vice is 100% Maine grown, sea salt,
I love it.
Maine pickling cucumbers, and that same, Berliner Weiss space.
We love
Oh,
pickles,
very
too.
cool.
I'm excited to try that.
Yeah.
It'd be great. I love that. So I want to jump into more storytelling. So you're working at this larger brewery. At what point did you decide that you wanted to open your own place?
Well, I think it was when I had kind of grown tired of living it wasn't a huge city, but I was living in a larger city for Norway at the time. And I also, wanted more agency in the beers that I was creating. I wanted to make my rounds through all the styles that I could. Not that we had a limited repertoire at Larvig. I think at one point I just decided I had learned as much as I was going to learn at that time from that job. And we also had 2 children. In Norway, it became increasingly difficult to spend time with my parents, Erica's parents, and it just made sense to move back to the States. And I thought it was just a perfect opportunity to try something out, not only in terms of brewing different styles and so forth, but also bringing a little bit of economic development to our small town and Main Street, which has a rich history. And I think that one of the most affirming things about running this business is that we've done that. We definitely have brought our brand of hospitality to Main Street. We've seen other businesses, I don't want to say follow suit, but open up after us in the hospitality field and thrive and bring, I think, the unique character of Norway, Maine to the fore, to kind of, express what it is to be from Western Maine. To folks who come and visit from other places.
It is such a cool place. When we were driving through, we're like, this is so, I want to, spend some time and, walk up and down the street and, check things out. There's such a cool vibe here, so I could definitely see the draw for you for this area. How did y'all pick this location?
So we were looking at a couple different buildings, and this building was a trolley barn where they stored the trolleys that went from Norway to South Paris, which is the connecting town. Borders right over there.
Okay.
And before that, it had been an ambulance dispatch. It was a bakery. It was our local power company's regional office for a while.
This building has gone through many iterations.
But yeah, before we took it over, it was several different iterations of a restaurant, and it just had all the infrastructure for running a hospitality business. I will say we had to do a lot of work in the brewery area to make it mostly usable for, wet, kind of humid brewery space. But we generally speaking, we didn't alter the structure of the building, really. It was kind of mostly set up. So that really influenced a lot of our decision to purchase this place. And it has a really great parking lot. It's a nice big parking lot with a sand lot out back.
It's always nice for a brewery to have parking.
Right, yeah. So we did extend a beer garden kind of patio out into the parking lot, what was just parking lot before. We built out the beer garden with planters in the back, so kind of green space in the summer. And then part of the covered part of the beer garden we actually close in the winter, and we can take a look at that.
Oh, nice. We did when we walked in. It's something we've seen obviously after COVID. I feel like a lot of spaces did it. Not saying that you did the same thing, but having such big open space that kind of goes into your parking lot that allows for more people, but also not everything has to be so crowded. we like that feeling of openness.
Yeah. Very cool. I love that y'all can have a couple different spaces as well to have people. So that's pretty awesome. And what year did y'all open?
So we opened in 2016, April 21st, was the tap room, and then we opened the beer garden on May 7th, was kind of our grand opening.
Oh, okay, gotcha. What was the reception like for the town of Norway?
It was great. It was really
Awesome.
busy. I always say the first 3 years were just like a blur because I haven't gotten any less busy. I'm still running around doing all this different stuff. But of course, in the beginning of any new business, and particularly hospitality businesses, there is a kind of air of excitement of a new place to open up. So you do get that kind of like novelty pop for the first few months or a year or two of being open. We definitely enjoyed that. But you got to keep people. You got to keep them on board. We had a really good chef. Our beers, obviously, we started out with four beers, I want to say.
Okay, like 4 core ones.
On tap. And now, we've had 10 beers on tap since
Okay.
probably 2017. Was it 3? My mom's gesturing that we started out at 3. Obviously, I did block out the first 3 years.
No, that's great. And it is. Also, we'll take a photo of it, but behind you, it says our suppliers, and it has this list of not just maltsters, but it goes to coffee, to orchards, to farms, to shellfish. That's really cool to bring that. Was that something that had been done before in Norway? Obviously, this seems like a very agricultural part of Maine.
I think we were kind of getting into the local war movement when it was fairly new. I mean, people have always bought from farms in this area, but I think as like as an awareness campaign, it was fairly new. And honestly, I like to think that we moved the dial a little bit on how people think about where their food comes from.
Yeah.
We have, in the past, been involved with the Foothills Food Festival and other kind of...
Oh, thank you.
Other organizations that have put a focus on local food production. The Allendale Community Garden has always been, that's our local just community garden with plots. And
oh, nice.
They also have a greenhouse and plots that they dedicate to growing food for their own food pantry and to do some work around food insecurity in the area.
Nice.
We've definitely had really, it's rewarding for me to kind of partner with those kind of organizations because I do feel like it furthers our goal of getting people to think of who produced this food product, where's my money going?
Right.
Who am I supporting by buying this Maine Family Farms hamburger or this broccolini from this farm or...
Yeah, the products don't just appear on the shelf and it just is like,
Even buying eggs from our distributor, who also grows the cucumbers for the pickle house, Blackie's Farm Fresh Produce, that are raised at another local farm. So,
very cool.
We might not buy the item directly from the farm, but we do...
You know where it's coming from.
Right, we do tend to gravitate towards those local products, even from our distributors. Ray's Stone Ground Mustard, for example.
Oh, nice.
One of the nation's oldest, mustard mills, still using big stone...
To grind up the mustard seed?
Wheels. Yeah. And that kind of, I think, helps give us part of our unique identity. It gives us a sense of place. That's very important for a brewery named after the town it's from.
Nice. Not to put you on the spot just because your mom is in the room. Is that something you grew up with, or where did this inspiration for being very conscious on local ingredients and why it's important to have that in your business?
I think it was from my time as a chef.
Okay, gotcha.
I had this head chef, Galit Semon. She was kind of short, fiery Jewish woman who had worked as the sous chef at the Waldorf
Oh, okay.
previously, and she...
That's pretty famous.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah.
and she had worked at the White Barn Inn, I think, in Kennebunk, and she just really was into vegetables. I mean, she liked doing fish, and she liked doing, meat, but she loved veggies. She came up to me one time, and she's like, Charlie, isn't this beautiful? And she had, cut a carrot in half. It was a yellow carrot, and she, had, used a peeler to make this really wide kind of slice of carrot. She put it around her wrist. She goes, Charlie, isn't this beautiful? I'd love to make jewelry out of this. And I was
Oh
like,
my gosh.
wow. And guess what? She
does.
ended up marrying a farmer.
Oh, that's awesome. Congrats to her.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she really introduced me, I think, to that concept of beauty in food.
And intention too, probably.
Intention as well, but
Yeah.
beauty, not only physical beauty, and I'm getting a
No,
little
this is perfect.
Yeah.
touchy-feely here, but
No.
the beauty in food is not only in how it looks, but the intention. Somebody grew that carrot.
Yeah.
Somebody put a lot of love into that carrot, and then the next person that gets it, right, the chef, really, puts some effort and intention into making that the best damn carrot you're gonna ever eat, maybe,
yeah.
or at least that week or
Yeah.
the month. And then the server, really wants to present that, hopefully, that carrot in a way that really hypes it up, really gets you excited to eat the carrot, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
then when you eat it, of course, you're experiencing all of that intention in one moment. It's a pretty special thing.
It is very special. I honestly, I think coming from, a smaller town here in Norway, Maine, we're from the West Coast, and so being able to just be here in this area and, just enjoy the local scene, I think not only are you helping boost the local community and those local businesses, but I think giving a nod to them. But then I think for me as a consumer, I'd be like, I want to go buy my eggs from that place, or I want to go to this, so it's not only are you getting the vegetables and the produce and all the things that you're, bringing here to sell in this one place, but you're also helping those places get people to come to them and want to buy, if they came here and they had that great carrot or that great broccoli or the pickle or,
Yeah.
whatever, they're more likely to go try and find that product elsewhere. So you're not only just helping them by buying their product, but helping them get in touch with the consumer that will probably want to go find them. Because that's how we would shop. If we found something that we liked at a place, we'd be like, oh, that's from that market down the street, I can go buy more of this. I'm more likely to do that and spend an extra $1 or $2 or $3 or $5, however much, to buy locally from something that's really awesome and really cool than just going to the grocery store where you may not know where it's coming from. So I think it's really cool that small businesses are supporting small businesses that then can help get consumers to those other small businesses.
Yeah, I definitely would say that we're trying to move the needle. It's small bites.
Oh, yeah.
You
That's how it gets done.
Yeah.
take it in small bites, and they might not rush out and join Meryl Kelly's local food connection, where she's going around to different farms and picking stuff up for people, for a pretty reasonable delivery fee, actually. But,
We'll plug you, Mary Kelly.
Yeah.
that's right. But they think about it.
Yes. Think about it.
It gets the thought process going, and
Or they tell somebody else, maybe
Right.
maybe they don't do it, but maybe they talk to somebody and they say, oh my gosh, we had this produce, and that person thinks, oh, I've been looking for a place to go do that, and then that's how it works. So.
I feel like the importance of that chain of connection. When you go to a farmer's market and you're able to buy produce, but then talk to the person's like, oh, I'm the farmer that grows these. There's you feel the shift in significance. It's not just oh, I'm just buying vegetables or whatever. You're like, oh, this is an actual human interaction, and that person gets to talk to you and share a little bit about their story, or even just simple conversation. And I think the easiest thing is when I would get stoked to be in breweries before I worked in them, I wanted to talk to the brewers. I was like, look at this magical liquid you made. Like, tell me about it. Yeah. And I think it just is like that chain of connection and importance when people are able to make a tangible thing of being like, I get to sit down and have your beer and talk to you and maybe like hear about a little bit like your thought process about it. It makes it seem more personal than just like, oh yeah, I'm just being served a beer by so-and-so.
Yeah. And that's a big reason why I wanted to do the podcast is because you're doing the same thing for your beer, you know, like you're making this product just like you would do as a chef. You're making this beer from products that you've collected and you're sourcing and bringing into one spot. And we wanted to have a space for you to tell that story as well and like show that craft and beauty because it's not a carrot, but it's a hop. So, you know, it's just as beautiful and intricate and all the different things that you're doing with all the different ingredients that you're sourcing is pretty incredible. So,
well, thank you. And I guess on that note, I'll tell you a little story about what's in your glass right now.
Yes, I would love that.
I was just about to say, did you smell it?
Another Berliner Weiss.
Is this the pickle?
This is the pickle Weiss.
So good.
So we're going to release this next week. And it's currently carbonating in the kegs and cans. We always add sugar and yeast to our mixed firm beers and can condition or keg condition them. Because I feel like it definitely promotes that funky character a little bit more. It definitely tartans up in the package. And it's a pain because sometimes it just doesn't carbonate as quick as you like, but I do feel for this type of beer, you get the absolute, you know, most complexity and traditional, I want to not traditional, but traditional inspired Berliner Weiss feel, right?
No,
or
I like
Saison feel, because that is how historically it was done. And you can condition things with different sugars. We do our wheat triple, our farmhouse triple with maple syrup, not only in the kettle and in the tank, but right before we can it, we add maple and yeast, and it carbonates on the maple instead of dextrose or sucrose.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And you have plenty of maple around here.
Yeah, so that's nice. One of those local flavors that we love to promote because it's so uniquely New England.
Yeah.
So this beer, again, it starts with Blue Ox Malt House Pale Malt and wheat malt. We use a little bit of their Munich wheat.
Okay.
And chit malt for body. And it's a waiting game. Definitely, I would say 2 to 3 months. Well, a couple weeks for primary, and we let it free rise to probably 85 degrees, maybe even 90 degrees core temperature in the middle of the tank.
Gotcha.
And it does get pretty phenolic, and there's some weird flavors early on, maybe a little plasticky Brett. But over the next 2 to 3, 4 months of secondary fermentation, that really cleans up, and you get a little bit more funk. You get a really highly attenuated beer, so very dry.
Yeah.
And then we add pickling cucumbers. We just quarter them. We wash them with cold water, but we leave whatever resident microflora are on.
Oh, nice. On the skin?
Not pasteurized in any way, shape, or form.
And is that like Persian English? What are pickling cucumbers? I've used cucumber in a variety of different beers, so I'm not sure what the...
So they're just like a little bit smaller. They can certainly like football up. They can get to like 3-4 inches wide, but really for pickling, you want them when they're a little smaller. We do take what they call number 2 cukes that have gotten a little bit, maybe like a little too big to use as picklers. We get them a little cheaper from Blackie's because, it's something that they're not really going to sell retail, but it has all the flavor of the cucumber. And the pickling cuke in particular has, I think, this is just my personal opinion, it's not scientific whatsoever. It has more tannins in the skin, just like a slightly thicker skin. It's a little bit more knobbly, so you get a little bit more of that bitter cuke. And there's there's almost no hops in this beer. We use a little bit of Maine-grown Cascade so we can call it beer.
Okay, gotcha.
because by definition,
And not just to brew it.
beer
Yeah.
in America has to have hops.
Yeah.
Really anywhere. But yeah, so instead we add the cukes, a little bit of kind of delicate bitterness, some dill, so definitely some grassy, vegetal, herbal, and then we let it condition for another, I think it was two or 3 months. Before racking it into a bright tank, recirculating it with the sugar, yeast, and salt, sea salt. So I feel like we nailed
it.
the salinity on this beer. We nailed the acidity, again, like kind of that softer Berliner Weiss acidity, and the color. The cucumber is perfect.
Yeah.
It's really like on point this year.
Yeah.
No, I will.
Yeah.
I will say, we always try really outlandish, and I wouldn't say this is outlandish, but that's why I use to describe anything that people try to be really creative with. This is really, really good.
I have tried a couple of pickled beers, or I don't know, pickled beers, and this is probably the best pickle beer that I've had.
Thank you.
Like what you said, like everything, you can taste all of those different nuances without it being like too overbalanced or like anything. So yeah, very delicious.
Right. I mean, you can totally take
Yeah.
pickle juice and dump it in a beer and be like, yay.
Yeah.
We prefer to let the beer pickle the cucumbers.
Oh, nice.
So again, it's that natural fermentation,
Yeah.
and the cucumbers undoubtedly contribute their own host of yeast and wild yeast and bacteria to the mixed culture.
Yeah,
That's pretty
I
wild.
will say, like, that cucumber kind of like skin, almost like cucumber rind flavor. That's like super nice and balancing.
Yeah.
It's almost
It
like
is one of the balancing factors.
Yeah.
Tannins, salt, acidity, even sweetness. I mean, everything is on that kind of featherweight balance,
The
right?
seesaw.
If you go a little too heavy on one thing, you can put something else out of balance. I consider this brewery as my kind of real education as maybe someday brewmaster. It takes a long time to really earn that title.
Gotcha.
I still consider myself the head brewer.
Gotcha.
Still a work in progress. But I think that the last 8.5 years, kind of controlling what kind of beers we brew, branding them, really doing the full package. Speaking of which, packaging, just in and of itself, being responsible for every aspect of packaging.
And y'all's beer is in a lot of places. On y'all's website, like being able to push out, like
Yeah.
you can find it in a lot of places. Y'all do a lot.
We did recently partner with Central Distributors to get our beer further north
Okay.
and east in Maine. We self-distribute still in Cumberland and York counties and part of Oxford, really just Norway. Just
Okay.
this
So
town.
pretty locally.
But we've been able to hit a pretty good group of bottle shops and restaurants that are looking for something a little different. That's definitely our hallmark. Is
Nice.
variety and
Is that kind of where you wanted to be? Sorry. didn't
yes,
mean to go-
no,
okay.
absolutely.
Yeah.
We wanted to position ourselves as a brewery with a stout as their flagship because we thought that segment of the market was not underserved, but we thought we could do a really good job with Grumpy Pants to make it
I love that name.
right, to make it a go-to and a very recognizable brand in the whatever
Yeah.
realm of stouts in New England.
Nice.
And to expand into saisons, mixed fermentation beers, lager. I never thought that dark lager would be popular. Guess what?
It is.
Boy, were you wrong.
Thank you, Sacred Profane.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
Mike Fava and Brienne are like
Yeah.
two of the best brewers
Yeah.
ever. And not that I'm a total fanboy, but I would say that I've taken some cues from Mike for sure and have a lot of respect for both of them bringing a brewery into existence with the Czech style tank
Yeah.
service, and only brewing 2 beers, 2
Yeah.
brands to start with. Incredibly smart in a crowded market, and the quality is just top notch, open fermented lager, which blows my mind that is a thing now, because it has come back around. A lot of brewers do like the crispy boys,
Yeah.
and have tried to popularize craft lagers. I want to say, like, not necessarily light American lagers, although I do see quite a few of those on the market as well.
Oh, yes.
From
yes.
craft breweries. No
We
judgment.
we like to
I
call
drink them too.
We like to call them the lawnmower beers.
Right.
You can just like keep
Yeah.
drinking it while you're drinking. You're doing the lawn, and the lines aren't like too like
Right.
wavy.
Yeah. Yeah. We're not drinking Imperial Stout on
Right.
the lawn.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is not
Wow.
Florida. I don't think they have lawns in
Well,
Florida.
these 3 people aren't. I don't know about y'all out there. You can drink whatever you want on your
True.
lawnmower. Just
Yeah,
don't
there's
crash
no
it and
judgment.
get caught in
Sure.
a blade.
There's no judgment. No, I will say one thing about Sacred Profane that I think that is really interesting for a business model is that they are essentially doing what we call like traditional brewing, but it's just historical brewing. That's how it was done for years, and that's literally like why breweries survived and existed. And it's cool that now in this day and age of technology, there's a place out there where even with all the stainless steel fermentation and all the cool like temperature probes, like all the shit that we have, they're still bringing this like ode of like, oh yeah, this is how it's always been done, and this is what we're going to put our life on the line for. It's just being like, this is what we're going to do, and like representing it in a market where the businesses really say like, be as fluid, be as agile, and kind of like almost like not be ambiguous. Yeah. But I don't know. It could really take away from what your personality is as a business.
Yeah, for sure. I wanted to kind of ask more about the name and logo of Norway Brewing itself. So obviously, y'all are in Norway, Maine, and then you're also from Norway, your family.
Definitely double entendre.
Yeah,
was
yeah.
intended.
Double. I didn't know. Did you all experiment? Like, did y'all talk about having any other names, or was it just like we were just like, this is what it will be, just because of everything?
We really didn't, because we wanted to, I think, base a lot of the ambiance and the kind of concept on the place. For example, the wainscoting being, like real barn board. It's not pallet wood. It's from a 200-year-old barn.
Wow.
That somebody that we know took down. We bought the wood, fixed it up, kind of like wire brush, pulled out all the nails, and put it in our tap room, because we felt like that was indicative of who we are and what the area is. The logo, actually, as a segue too, we're kind of sitting in front of this mural
this black chalkboard mural wall.
that outlines the brewing process, and both the logo, this mural, the supplier list, all that was done by my aunt and uncle, Nancy and Phil Rose.
Okay, I did see his name right there. It says Phil Rose 2016.
Yeah, they designed our logo and helped us out with the branding in the beginning. Norway was really always going to be the concept and the name, but what it was going to look like was heavily influenced by the Roses and their really kind of manual, traditional art skills, because Phil didn't even project this image onto the wall. He did he drew it, and then he printed it out, and he like made a grid on the drawing, and then they set up a string grid on the wall.
Oh my gosh!
And did it freehand.
That's
in
very
chalk.
old school.
We did it in chalk originally. It's been gone over in paint pen.
I was about to say
chalk marker since
yeah.
then.
That's awesome.
It's beautiful. I've been staring at it behind, because I'm looking at you, but it's behind you. I've been like staring at all of it, and I love all of it. I find something new every time I look at it.
Yeah, the drawing and the marketing too is like very unique, and it's clean as well. It's not too busy, which is it reminds me of off-color brewing in New York a little bit, kind of like a lot of the drawn logos that associate with the name and whatnot. Like, it's the perfect balance.
Yeah, and people ask about the tap signs all the time, and a lot of them are drawn by Erica. She's really
Oh, nice.
talented.
Okay, your partner?
Visual artist. Yep, and
Nice.
and illustrator. She's done a lot of our labels. Some of them were done by former employees, but to have, instead of just a name on a slat or kind
Get
of
some personality.
right, and the untapped menu
Yeah.
on a TV, having the tap boards really kind of signals how kind of handcraft and manual everything is here. We do have Twin Monkeys Gunnison filling line, which is semi-auto. It has some really nice features on it. But our brew house is Portland Kettleworks 7-barrel system. We can get 10 barrels out of it, but it really is. We got a mill that we dump the grain in bag by bag. We catch it in bags at the bottom, transport them from the warehouse to here, and then carry them up the brew house steps and dump. One person dumps and the other person stirs with a fairly large stainless mash paddle. And stainless because I've seen multiple canoe paddles just
I'm so glad you said canoe paddles. The last brewery I was at, we had a canoe paddle. And funny enough, I'm pretty sure Anne, she's at Oxbow now. I'm pretty sure it's her canoe paddle at the Steeplejack location that we used to stir mash.
Yeah, and it works until it breaks.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. We've had some stuck mashes, and I was so thankful for that stainless mash paddle. Yeah, right? I do believe if you do things the hard way, you'll learn a lot more than if you kind of get set up to, push button brew from the start. I will say it's challenging. It makes things frustrating sometimes, but it also forces us to be dialed in. How fast you dump the grain into the mash tun can affect the temperature of the mash.
Yeah.
How much water you have resting on top of, if you get that wrong, you have too much water on top of the grain bed, the hydrostatic pressure can stick your mash and you can't get any liquid out. It's a pain in the butt, but it's also kind of a badge of honor to really have 100% control. And if you mess up, it's totally your fault. And if you do well, I do often feel you get a little bit of extra satisfaction.
Yeah.
Not that on the days that, something goes wrong, I'm not like cursing the brewing gods.
Yeah.
And looking very much like the grumpy pants.
The grumpy
Screaming
pants.
into an empty fermenter.
Yeah.
Throwing the barrel into the fire to roast.
Oh, yeah,
or what
you're
did you say? Smoke.
Yeah,
something?
last week I might have had one of those moments rebuilding the bar,
Yeah.
screaming into the
Definitely.
void.
Definitely.
But,
I want to hear your story about Mr. Grumpy Pants.
so let's just say I can be a little temperamental. And the legend of Grumpy Pants was just to explain a little bit about the branding.
We'll take a picture of it.
Yeah.
It's a picture of a dude in very kind of stout stained overalls with his hands akimbo, looking pretty darn grumpy with a handlebar mustache. It's definitely me.
Yeah.
So you once upon a time had a handlebar mustache.
Right. Yes,
Okay. Yes.
Absolutely. So
It looks like beer is coming
spilling
out of things.
out of bottles, and the tanks are exploding, and it's dripping from the ceiling.
So the assumption is the beer exploded?
Something went wrong.
Something went wrong?
Something went terribly wrong in the brewery.
Nice.
There's stout
There's
everywhere. This
a
guy's
geyser.
just standing in the middle of it, and he's just grumping.
I love it.
And that's yes. Okay. I've have many of those moments. As I age, I'm 41 now. I'll be 42.
Hey, you're still young.
Still young. I hope that I'm taking these things with a tad more grace than I used to, a little less screaming into the void. But you'll have to ask the people around me about that. I don't know if they would 100%.
The lab person that you forgot was in the
I'm
back of the
looking over
brewery.
at Erica right now.
We love it. I love a good oatmeal stout with coffee, so I'm sure it's great.
She knows many, because I would, specifically when I was at Fort George, I was the weekend cellar manager, and I would sometimes send her videos where I'm like, I walked into the brewery at 5 a.m. and I had just like lakes of beer overflow from like the blow off bucket from fermentation. Like, I mean, literally to clean up. That was like my first thing, was like 2 hours of squeegeeing and shot backing and stuff.
The worst, right? The worst.
Yeah.
It's supposed to stay in the tank.
Or it's supposed to be measured. It was all, it's funny, but that was definitely like, she would come to drop me off lunch and she'd be like, you seem a little peeved today. And I'm like, yeah, I spent like my first 3 hours like cleaning up shit that I thought we had dialed in, but we didn't. So it just puts me 3 hours behind. And I was like, this is the gig. Like, this is what I signed up for. And literally, like, it was just like, you know what? I still wouldn't want to be doing any other job. So but it was. And I'll have to show you the video. It is ridiculous. It feels like it should stop and just keeps going and going and going. Yeah.
Yeah, oopsie moments, right? I feel like everybody in the brewing industry has some.
But yeah, so you obviously have a list of our suppliers, and there's obviously a lot of malt houses, and we are drinking Mr. Grumpy Pants. Is that right?
So good.
And it's so good. And we were talking about kind of the roast dark malts. What is your favorite malt to use, or is there a dream malt that you want to have to use in a beer?
So my favorite roast malt is definitely Thomas Fawcett. It's what we used at Larvig. It's what I know. Simpsons is also very good. You know, there are other English maltsters and American maltsters that are doing great roast malts. I just really like Thomas Fawcett because the kernels are very plump.
Oh yeah.
And it's just not it's not too accurate. It's not too astringent, like you were saying. That kind of like almost metallic flavor of roasted barley or black patent malt. Their chocolate malt is just insane.
Yeah.
And when I was working at Larvig, we brewed Beer Geek Breakfast, which is McKellar's coffee stout.
Oh,
that was a hot brew, hot coffee stout, a little bit different approach. But it did introduce me to Thomas Fawcett roasted malts, and yeah, love at first sight. I really, I really do like them. When Blue Ox Malt House, which is our local, it's only 40 minutes away.
Oh, nice.
The pale malt in Grumpy Pants is from Blue Ox. When they get their roaster online, we will be trying some of that.
Experimenting.
And it's kind of a defining feature of this beer, being a coffee stout. You need the right balance of roast. It needs to have that roast barley, but you can't do too much because it will end up feeling heavy or overly bitter.
For sure.
You were just commenting how it's not cloying, but it is almost 6 degrees Plato, which is like 1024 specific gravity, maybe 1022, 5.5 Plato, and you really you feel the sweetness, but you don't taste it on the back end because it's, again, balanced by the roast malt, balanced by the coffee, and by Centennial hops.
Okay, gotcha.
So there's a fair amount of both bittering and late addition hops.
Yeah. I think it definitely shows that like the balance of all those components allows it to retain sweetness, but not feel like, I visualize like a sponge, like when you squeeze up too much and it's like coming out of the sponge.
Right.
Like that's what I envision on my tongue, and that's
What
not
a
what I
great
get.
metaphor.
Dude, he's good.
But that's what I don't get with this is like it's the perfect amount of like, oh, and this is what balance is, what people try to achieve all the time. And especially, I don't know the ABV on this beer, but I don't assume it to be big. That's always like anything that you're going for like bigger, bolder flavors. That's always the hardest thing of like, are you overdoing it? Are you overfilling that sponge? Or is it like the perfect amount of saturation?
At 5.8% ABV,
Oh my gosh.
it is easy to go overboard.
Yeah.
But it's beefy enough that
I actually thought it would have been higher. I was thinking like it's like 6.5, but 5.8 is lovely.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's perfect.
absolutely.
Yeah. And I love, that's, like I said, I love coffee stouts. Oatmeal coffee stouts.
I
Perfect.
think the defining feature of this too is, defining feature of this beer is that it's cold steep. So we get coarse ground, light roast, Ethiopian or Kenyan coffee usually.
Okay.
Fruit forward. I like notes of like chocolate and blueberry. Particularly was the Guji, the natural
Oh, okay,
processed
gotcha.
Guji that we got early on from Coffee by Design. Really exuded that kind of blueberry note, and it just really, that red fruit kind of aspect adds so much to the beer. But a lot of those volatiles would just dissipate if we added it hot in the kettle.
Yeah.
So we do just let the beer ferment out. We drop the yeast and put it in a brink or pitch it to another tank, and then we add coffee in a bag right to the beer and let it steep for 36 to 48 hours at 60 to 65 degrees, and that's just that's cold brew method.
That's awesome.
That's amazing.
I was like sitting here like kind of whatever aroma was still left, and it reminded me too of like when you get like the chocolate covered cherries, but like that sherry flavor.
Yes.
So when you were talking about the coffee, I was like, oh yes, that does. It reminds me of that as well.
Yeah,
So,
very intentional.
yeah, that's awesome.
I can see it like all like okay, so we had the pickle beer,
We had a
had
good
the-
gamut. We had Vice,
and then
Vice.
this, and like you can really like the subtleties throughout and the complexities. Like it really is so leveled for each different style, and like I think that's really impressive. I'm not a brewer. He's a brewer. He's brewed a lot, but like being able to like hit the different marks for each being, I feel like you see the intentionality just like you talked about with the produce, and like you as a chef, like I feel like you see that with the beer too, of like the intentionality of what you're putting in and how it's all working together. Like it's so great. And
it also, again, kind of bringing it back to seasonality, like if you make a beer, and I'm going to take Maine State of Mind, which is our Maine-grown Pilsner. We use Maine Malt House Pilsner malt and Cascade from the hop yard or Aristic hops, and that's it. You know, lager yeast, water, Pilsner malt, Cascade hops. 4 ingredients.
Love it.
Very Reinheitsgebot, right?
love it.
But we can only do it once a year because, well, in the beginning we were using dried whole cone hops.
Oh, nice.
Not wet hop, but dried whole cone hops in a hop back instead of late addition in the kettle. We haven't been able to get dried whole cone for the past couple of years, but we can only get so much Cascade. The hop yard only produces so much every year, so ends up being once a year, maybe twice a year if we're lucky, but once a year. And if you hit everything perfect, awesome. If you don't hit everything perfect, you have like a whole nother year till you're going to brew it again. So you got to really remember that, and either take really good notes, which is essential for I think any brewer,
Right.
but like take it to heart and really pay attention to those things. I remember one year we just absolutely nailed it. It was one of the years that we had whole cone hops, and the quality of the Cascade was really good that year. Our fermentation was great. We paid really close attention to the fermentation temperature, diacetyl rest, stepping down the temperature slowly to lagering temperature, and then ultimately crashing. I think we were doing 40 degrees for lagering temperature and crashing down to carbonating temperature after whatever it was, 8 weeks, 12 weeks.
You're letting the beer finish out as the way it should be.
Right, but also learning the lessons of last year and taking those lessons to heart. So we only have one shot. We're a small brewery. We're not doing 10, 12, 24 batches of Maine State of Mind a year. We're doing one. So if we mess it up, we really only get we have like 12 months to think it over, and and then we get to try again. And one of the things I enjoy the most about this job is the seasonality, the challenge of getting fresh fruit and ingredients into the beer when they come ripe. Because if you don't have the beer ready, you're either going to have to freeze those suckers on trays so they don't stick in a huge clump, and then rebag them later. So again, like that old process of preservation. It's not canning, but freezing and taking the harvest in when it's ready. If you have the beer ready, that's really optimal if it can go right into the beer.
Absolutely.
But but the lessons of that seasonality stay with me, and I think make me a better brewer because I know what's coming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like you don't know what every year is going to bring in terms of some years we don't get any peaches, and that's a year we don't brew Life's a Peach.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some years you get a bad blueberry harvest and you can't do that extra beer that you had planned in addition to the one that you always make with blueberries. So, and then some years there's a glut and you just have all this. We have like 200 pounds of rhubarb in the freezer.
Oh,
last year still. Gotta figure out something to do with it, you know?
Oh, that's awesome.
Right, it is cool because, again, as a small supplier, we can deal directly with these, you know, individual producers, and we're not really tied down to making Little Bear or Life's a Peach, which are two of our barrel-aged fruited mixed ferm beers. We're not tied down to doing it every year. However, you know, when you're going to do it, you have to have a solid plan on, well, I need to start fermenting this beer like a month or 2 weeks beforehand. Or,
Yeah.
And I'm going to end up releasing this beer in 2 years,
Right.
a year and a half.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that.
That planning, the having to be strategic, and how do you obviously you said notes, but how do you be so strategic? Obviously, you've been open for almost 9 years, and so
Yeah,
you've had
you
years and patterns, but like, how do you continue to do that?
Just stay in touch with our suppliers.
Nice.
You know, just have notes in my calendar, get in touch with Cummings Blueberries, check in with, hey, how's the harvest?
Yeah.
Nice.
It's one of
It's
the
personal. It's intimate.
It's one of the best parts about my job is working with other businesses that are really excited to, you know, move some of their product, like Blackies and the cucumbers, that are like the number 2 ones that we can't, you know, they can't sell for pickles, but we can use them, and it's those partnerships are very rewarding. Again, using side by each roasted coffee in the Imperial Stout, just really, really fun. It keeps it, it does keep it local and intimate and feeling like we're working at human scale. And brewing 7 to 10 barrels at a time is manually, right? Very human scale endeavor.
Yeah.
I love it
No,
so
I
much.
like that. I've always been a big person about seasonality because I just enjoyed watching the seasons of beer come and go. And even getting into beer, I was like, that's what makes it so special. You get excited about winter because winter warmers, it's cold, it's dark. Everybody's going to be at your favorite places. Like, you get stoked for that. You get spoiled when you have that all the time and it loses its luster. But I also think it's really cool, too, to do that with ingredients as well. Being like, hey, this year they didn't have blueberries, but they had all this rhubarb. And so we got to figure out what to do with it. But that's like still such a cool aspect, and it's so lost. So great for you.
And to fully answer your question, it's not as sexy, it's not as magical, but Google Calendar, y'all.
No, that's what we use.
You know what I mean? Like everything stacks up like that, and if something overlaps, you can kind of move it around and you
She's a
set your
project
little-
manager.
I'm a project manager, so I give you some other tools, but for if it's working for you, don't change it.
Logistics is
Yeah.
everything in the brewery
yeah.
world.
Don't change it if it's working. Hey,
But I will take your notes. Thank you.
yeah, we can talk after. I mean, some people I feel like don't. Anyways, that's a whole nother. We don't have
Yeah.
to get into that because that's my high horse, and I'll stay off of it for this episode.
No, it's totally fine.
But,
That's all right. If you want to do a podcast, we could do it remotely. If you want to do a podcast about being organized and running a business, I can definitely give you some examples of what not to do.
Oh yeah, I
For
think
sure.
from all the stories we've learned is like we're all hardworking, creative, and passionate individuals. That doesn't mean it's the most logical, business-minded, like efficient way to do it, and that's where she comes into play
we
a
also
lot.
offer consulting
Yeah, we do.
services. If ever, I'm not saying you do,
No.
but if anyone else listening wants some consulting services for their business,
It is funny though that
We can't help.
brewers or brewery businesses, they like to figure it out on their own, and then like months later they'll be like, I now get why you were telling me what you were telling me. We're like,
Yeah.
yep, you learned.
Y'all, I should have gotten MBA.
Yeah.
Seriously.
You don't need an MBA. It's called YouTube University. You'll be
Yeah.
Right.
fine. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
God.
you'll
Yeah.
be fine. You'll be
Yeah.
fine. Well, I wanted to hear a little bit about, before we close it out, I wanted to hear a little bit about your team here at Norway. Like, how do you make all of this happen?
Yeah, and what's the size of it, too? It sounds very small.
Yeah, so we're kind of like a 12-employee business-ish. We've always kind of floated between 8 or 10 and 20, 24, including, very part-time summer seasonal help. But we have Corey Nicholson, who's our longest-running employee. He's been here since 2018. He came to us from Baxter Brewing.
Oh, nice. Congrats.
Alex Hayden, who is our other brewer, he's been here for 3 years almost now. He came to us from Blue Ox Malt House.
Nice.
He also worked at the Hop Yard, so
Thank
that
you,
was
Blue
a big
Ox.
motivation for for hiring him, as he knows the origins of some of our base ingredients intimately. We have a chef, Dustin Edwards, back there prepping for our beer dinner tomorrow.
I saw that.
It's going to be so fire.
That's awesome. We'll
Yeah.
put that on the Instagram, too.
Smoking that ribeye with barrel
With
steaks.
that barrel steak.
I mean,
That
they
darn
won't.
barrel.
They won't hear the animosity because this will come out after the beer
Right,
dinner.
no,
But
yeah.
we'll post nothing but. Oh,
I was only angry at the barrel when I
Yeah, not at Dustin.
when I cut it apart. We're friends now that I'm burning it.
Yeah.
There you go. I like that.
And it smells really good. But we also have Maciek Tasaro behind the bar. He's Polish. He brings the European flavor to our tap room.
Okay.
We have KJ and Winter and River and and Cole's pointing to himself. He's our Grand Cru Mug Club member who's also an electrician and a good friend of mine.
It's really good to have an electrician
So
at a
you had-
brewery.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Once
there's
so
probably a lot of
far.
work for beer trade that goes on a lot.
We've had a rotating cast, but
some
Maciek,
good
Corey,
crew.
Alex,
Good
Nice.
Dustin. Those are the steady fixtures over the past year or so.
Nice. I know a lot of these people local, like grew up here, reside
A
in
lot
the
of
area.
them grew up here. Some of them grew up in like Gorham or
Yeah, other parts.
other parts of Maine. Half
Gotcha.
hour to an hour away, but certainly everybody is living in this area now.
Nice.
And there's the common thread between all of us is that we all have to get up and shovel our goddamn driveways.
So there's no excuses for not getting to work.
Well, but I mean, I look, if somebody texts me and says I'm late because a bunch of ice fell on my car and I gotta
Yeah.
dig it out, I'm like,
You
I get it.
understand.
You get it.
I
You
get
understand.
it.
Yeah.
And being an employer is very challenging sometimes. It's also one of our main motivating factors for starting this business and staying in business is to
Right.
create jobs in this area.
Yeah.
It's like I said, very challenging, very rewarding. It's not for everybody, but you'd have to ask my employees.
I mean, y'all are so.
We're now going to open this up
Yeah,
to have
no.
Round table discussion.
yeah, anonymous
How
round table.
shitty of a boss is Charlie? No, don't get edit that.
We won't cut it out, but no, it's true. It's like I will say I think it's something that we all think about because we eventually want to have like a microbrewery, bottle
like
shop,
to have
tap room,
something.
but we think of like
Yeah.
it's our business, it's building our dream, but we want the people there that work for us to feel like not only does it matter, but if they want to stay there forever, that there's an incentive to do so. Or if they're going somewhere else, we want to give them tools and almost train them better to be more successful than us. And it's like, how do you
Right.
convey that? How do you do that in a
Or
world
at
like
least,
today?
like take those lessons
Somewhere
and
else.
weave it into somebody else's story.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
For sure.
It's painful sometimes when employees leave, even if it's not because you were at odds with them, but like they just were star friggin' employees and you just love having them around so much. When our first sous chef left, Savipan, Seng Savang, he started Lemu Eats. If you get up to Bethel in the next little while, you should definitely go to Lemu Eats.
Okay.
And I was really sad when he left, but he did go and do better
For him.
things.
Yeah.
I mean, he really spread his wings and was able to fulfill his concept. Absolutely nailed it. And like I said, running any restaurant is hard. You have your ups and downs. Sometimes business is good, sometimes it's not great. But it is really awesome to see people kind of leave your business and part of your business goes with them. Part
Yeah.
of the lessons that they learned.
Well, think about your story that you told us. Like, think about, like, I'm sure every time you left one of those jobs, like, it was hard for them to lose you, but your story is a part of their story. And
Yeah, it's carried on.
It's carried
Absolutely.
on. So I think it's
Yeah.
really beautiful. With that, I'd like to ask you, if you had a piece of advice for your younger self, what would you say? We ask this every single podcast, just so you know.
This how
I
you
have so much to say.
You should write a little, like, novel, little short story about it.
All right. I'm not going to break it down. I'm going to do a little, maybe
Do it.
slightly rambling
You do you. Go ahead.
soliloquy right here. All right. First of all, don't be afraid to fail.
That is a good
And
one.
when you do fail, you gotta be objective about it, and you have to take action to correct the failure. But understand that the failure in itself is valuable
Yeah.
for the lessons learned.
That's
like that.
So, like, I think that, like, honestly, like, that is such a huge thing for any entrepreneur, especially.
I'm trying to age with grace
Yeah.
over here, and if
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can't fail with grace, you're not going to
Yeah.
be good at business.
Yeah.
Because you have to make mistakes to learn lessons. You don't all have to make mistakes to learn every single lesson,
Yeah.
but a lot of lessons are going to be hard fought. And it's very important to remind yourself that you're human, you're going to make those mistakes. It's what you do when you fail
Yeah.
that will set you apart from a consistent failure of a person to
Yeah.
somebody who uses failure to better themselves or their business. The second thing I would say is definitely pay attention in accounting class.
Yeah. Too late
That's
for
just
that.
a short one.
No, I love that though.
Or take an accounting class.
Right, and the third one is do not harden your heart. Do not
Oh, I love that.
become too jaded. It is the joy and the magic in everyday things that keeps us engaged and just kind of loving life. Lately I've had some really tough times, and it is hard sometimes to rise to the occasion and to again brush off defeat or
Yeah.
a really threadbare bank account or whatever it is. If you set yourself up for success, you have good allies and resources to draw on when things get tough. You really, belief and fumes can get you a long way. You have to have a solid plan, how to draw yourself out of a hole when you get into one. And again, me yesterday would probably be like, you're full of shit.
Yeah.
But
Hey, but it
right
hits,
now,
right?
you
Yeah.
asked me this question, and I'm telling you, it may not seem like you have much hope left, but if you give up hope, nobody else is gonna
Nope.
have hope for you.
Yeah.
For sure.
You're the source of your own greatest strength,
Yeah.
I love that.
and don't forget it.
Yeah.
No, we
Hey,
really
we'll
do.
we'll like clip that, and we'll just like send it to you as an audio clip. So whenever you need it, you can have it too.
I will have to
because
be
Yeah.
reminded.
because I think, I mean, we get to hear this a lot from a wide variety of entrepreneurs and people who are owning businesses, or a head brewer or chef for different things, and so we get to hear a lot of inspirational things. So for us, we get to hear a lot of this, and then we get to edit it, and so we hear it a lot. So I don't know, for us, we wanted to make sure people who are in this industry especially remember why they're in it, and that's why we have the
Yeah.
podcast.
You gotta keep grinding, and then you have to know when to pull the plug, when to.
Or lean on support. Like the craft beer community is huge. Like lean on that support.
But like sometimes it becomes inevitable, and you have to make a call that is difficult. And
Yeah. I like what you said about when you said like being objective. I think that's like removing your own pride and ego, because that's how you do it. And also, like, I think it helps protect yourself, because when you put so much pride and ego to things, you like double down on how much you have the potential to get hurt. Whereas if you just take it objective, being like, hey, I didn't follow X, Y, and Z, and this is part of why it's failing, but now I know how to deal with that, and that's okay. And I think everybody's their own worst self-critic. Comparison in any business and industry is like the worst. With all the social media exposure, it's so easy to look at everybody else, and it's like, I feel like I'm doing the same thing, but why am I not successful? And then that self-critic inside your head likes to sit there and tell you, this is something I've struggled with for a long time and go to therapy for and talk to my wife constantly about, of like, how do I stop that? Because I'm the only person telling me that. Everybody else outside is like, no, we don't believe that.
Right. And those people can't really change your mind either. If you're dead set on criticizing yourself, you're going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, remembering to not give yourself a break, definitely, talk to yourself and say, hey, we really need to get better at this.
Yeah.
But beating yourself up really doesn't do any good.
Yeah, it's not getting you anywhere.
I take a lot of strength in my family. My kids are my greatest accomplishment. And
Nice.
my role as a father, although my time is spent a lot at my business, my role as a father supersedes my role as a business owner in life. And my kids are pretty dang decent human beings, and I take great pride and solace in that fact that they can sometimes make me feel better when I'm having a rough day.
Yeah,
Nice.
that's awesome.
I love that
so
comparison.
much. And
All right.
our last question. So we're in almost the middle of December, which is wild. What are you looking forward to in the next couple of weeks, and then in the beginning of the next year?
Well, I'm really looking forward to this beer dinner tomorrow. We are doing, pretty intentional pairings, designing dishes to fit the beers. We're also doing the pickle vice release next week.
Oh, nice.
We've made some of our own pickles from the same cucumbers we used in the beer.
I was about to ask, did you reuse the pickles that you had?
Well, we didn't reuse the same pickles, but we used the same
Type of
batch
pickles.
of
gotcha.
pickles.
Gotcha.
Because when those cucumbers come out of the tank, they're pretty mushy.
Yeah.
We've extracted pretty much every ounce of flavor that we can.
Ounce of life.
Ounce of life, right? Yeah. But we also have some casks coming up, so we're going to do a cask party
Fun.
between Christmas and New Year's.
Oh,
with,
awesome.
Spiced red ale and Le Cornichon, which is the pickle vice.
Okay.
With extra coriander, extra dill, and jalapeno peppers.
Oh,
mixed
lovely.
with acacia honey conditioned, just straight barrel vice, which is the barrel fermented.
Oh,
grape
very
vice.
cool. Oh, I love
Just
that.
put a lid on that today, so
That's exciting.
that's going to be
Ooh.
ready on the 27th for our cask party.
We might have to come back up for that.
Right?
Yeah.
And New Year's, I'm excited for New Year's. We do industry night here sometimes, which is like really focused on the hospitality industry. I have a lot of friends at other bars and restaurants in town. They come and support us when we pop up. We're not usually open on Tuesday, but it's a great day for industry folks to convene because
very
most
cool.
places aren't
Most
open.
places are
Yeah,
closed.
yes.
And I heard that for a while, and I was like, well, we could pop up.
Yeah.
We could open
could
up
do
on
something.
Tuesday.
Yeah.
So New Year's Eve is going to be industry with some musicians and doing kind of a originals only jam session with a bunch of local players. I think that's a great cap to the year for me.
Heck yeah.
It's
Love it.
It's my people. Into January, who knows?
Yeah.
Man? I have one note, and then
Yeah.
For people that do dry January, can we just kind of try to stagger that throughout the year so not everybody does it at the same time?
There you go. Yeah, yes. I like that. It's like you do 1 week, you do 1 week, you do 1 week. I like that.
I mean, you can have a whole month, but maybe not everybody in January.
Yeah.
I like that.
Or at least in one town. Like,
Right.
I'm sure here. Like,
Yeah.
everyone's doing dry January.
Yeah, brewing non-alcoholic beer is a lot trickier than
Yes.
it sounds.
Oh, tell me about it.
For sure. You'll just go buy a bunch of seltzer
This is just
water
a
or
joke, but
something.
everybody will be cranky for the whole month of January. February will hit, and then everybody will be back to normal.
That's it. Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess I just really want to say thank you guys for the
No,
conversation.
thank you.
Charlie, thank you so much.
You can hear the
I know.
the
tap room
spirit
is
of
open.
joy of the
Yeah.
season is ramping up here in the tap room.
We're stoked about it.
People streaming in, so I'm stoked about that too.
Yeah.
Yes.
And yeah, thank you so much again. It's been
Yeah.
really fun talking to you.
Thank you, friend.
so
We
much
appreciate the time.
fun. Cheers.